Hello folks, in this one we are going to look at company car versus company car allowance. There's a massive difference there, and one of them may suit you far more than the other, or it might be a borderline thing, but it's really important to understand what each one of these means to you before you sign up to either one, because usually it's a sort of a long-term thing and you don't want to be shooting yourself in the foot. So keep watching and we'll go through the main points. Just quickly, give the video a quick thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Thanks. Alright, let's move on to the content. So for a lot of people, they get to a certain position or they have a certain kind of job. I worked as a sales rep for a few years, or an account manager on the road, and I had the choice of taking a company car allowance or a company car. Now the company car allowance in my case would have been 500 quid a month, and the company car, bearing in mind I was doing about 20,000 business miles every year, the company car was just provided. It's fully insured, the company pays for all the servicing, the company just pays the petrol for my business trips, not my personal stuff, because you have to pay quite a lot of tax on that. And you know, because I was doing so many business miles, I didn't actually do many personal miles in it. And so they'd pay that for, in my case, it was a case of I pay for my petrol every month, put in the receipts at the end of the month and list the business trips, and they'd pay me 10p a mile or something for those business trips, which didn't always cover the petrol actually. So you have to be a little bit careful with that. But that's how it worked in my case. What I could have done was take a company car allowance, and I then would have had to have run my own car. So bought my own car, maintained it, serviced it, MOT'd it if it got to that, and all the rest of it. I think we also had something in our contract that said your car had to be under 4 years old or something like that, because of the image of the company, and you'd occasionally be taking clients out and that kind of thing. I don't think every contract has that by any means. I think a lot of them there's no requirement for the age of the car. They're the two options. Basically with the company car, you pay company car tax. I've done a separate video on company car tax that explains it in a lot more detail, which I'll put a link to in the description and probably like up there or something. And with the company car allowance, you get taxed on income tax at source. So it's as if the company have given you a pay rise of that amount. So if they give you 500 quid a month, 6 grand a year, you're going to get taxed as if you earn an extra 6 grand a year. So if you're a 40% taxpayer and you're paying tax and national insurance on that, you're left with about half of it probably. And of course you've got to get your own insurance, you've got to buy a car or lease a car, and think about how many miles you're going to do. Car leases can be very, very cheap, as you probably know if you watch this channel. If you're doing 8,000 miles, 10,000 miles a year, if you start putting in 30,000 miles a year, it goes up a lot. And likewise, if you buy your own car and then put 30,000 miles a year on it, the value of it's going to drop like a stone. So you have to put all these things into the mix when you make your decision. I'm going to go through like highlights of each one in a minute. I'm just giving you a little general overview to start off. And I guess the good thing with the company car is you know exactly what to expect. You pay your company car tax. Anything happens to the car, it's not yours, it's not your problem. And that's kind of the end of that. So what are the main benefits of a company car? So at the moment, it's possible to get ridiculously low benefit in kind rates if you can get an electric car. A benefit in kind is basically the value that you pay tax on. To keep it super simple. If you watch that company car tax video, it's all explained, but keep it simple for this one. It's what you pay tax on. So the benefit in kind element, if you get an EV at the moment, it's like 1% for 1% for this tax year, and I think 2% for the next tax year for 100% EV. So you're paying almost no tax on that car. And if you can get one of those on a company car deal, and you can live with the range and the charging requirements depending on your mileage, then just do that. End of video, do that. You know, that it's as simple as that. But not everyone can get an EV, and it may be that you regularly do 500 miles in a day and you don't fancy the charging situation and the time it might take and the reliability of the charging network, the availability of the charging network at all times. So let's forget about the EV, let's park that. Let's just say if you can get an EV and you can live with the mileage requirements, that's what you should probably do. So the other advantages of a company car is you don't have any unexpected costs. So if the car suddenly needs some work doing and it's not covered by the warranty, then the company pays for it. Or if it is covered by the warranty pays for it. If it needs some new tyres, the company pays for it. Anything like that, the company's going to pay for. You don't have depreciation costs. So if it's your own vehicle or you've got into a finance arrangement or something, the depreciation falls onto you. You might have bought something for 20 grand, 25 grand, 3 years passes, it's now got 60, 70,000 miles on it, and it's worth 6 grand or something. You've had that depreciation, that's been a cost to you, all right? If you take a company car, cost is theirs, or they might have leased it, or whatever they've done, but it's not your. Makes no never minds, as they would say in the West Country. Possibly. Sorry if that was offensive. And the other benefit of a company car is you almost always get to drive a brand new car. Quite often you get to pick it, and quite often you get to spec it. Yeah, you've got a brand new car, and although it's not yours, it's sat on your drive and it feels like yours. So you just don't have the bad bits that go with it, like the expense. So that's a really, really good thing about having a company car. Now, on the other hand, the other side of that is that the downsides of owning a company car are the benefit in kind rates can be horrendous. If you don't have an electric vehicle or even a plug-in hybrid, and let's say you were at more like the executive level and you've got something like a nice big 5 Series, a big SUV or something like that, company car tax on it is going to be absolutely hideous. And in some cases, it may be the cost of actually buying the thing for yourself or not far off. Certainly if you want a performance car, it can hurt you badly. So you really, really need to understand that in great detail, and that needs to be really quite a fundamental part of your decision-making process when it comes to picking your car, or indeed if you decide to do company car or car allowance. If the company pays your personal mileage as well as your business mileage, you might also have to pay fuel benefit, and that's an additional company car tax. And again, that can be a lot of money every month, and it might well be more than you would put into the car in fuel. So understand that. A fully expensed company car, which fully expensed company car usually means fuel, absolutely everything, can cost you a cartload of money. So don't, rob Peter to pay Paul. Don't think, oh, I'm getting free petrol. You usually spend 70 quid a month on your petrol and you're paying £200 for it to the tax man. Doesn't make sense. So you may not be able to choose your vehicle. Some companies, particularly very large companies, sometimes have fleet deals in place, and they might have a deal with Vauxhall, and all the reps get an Astra and all the management get an Insignia or something like that. You might not have any choice. With a lot of companies you do get the choice. Some might give you a brochure, or some might just say, we use this supplier and your budget is this every month on a lease. But also think about the amount of miles you're going to be doing. So if you're in a job where you're going to be doing 25,000 business miles a year, your budget doesn't go as far as the person next to you who might be doing 10,000 business miles a year. Do you see what I mean? I guess the other one is that you'll never own the car. But my thoughts on owning depreciating assets. I think they're good to own if you're going to run them into the ground and own them for donkey's years. And otherwise it's kind of pointless. So whether you see that as a disadvantage or not is dependent on your mindset, your use case. So yeah, that's a partial, I guess. Right, the benefits of a car allowance. The main one is that you can choose anything you want. And a lot of companies don't have the stipulation that something has to be a certain age or anything like that. So you could literally have any kind of car you want and go and use that for your job. And that's that. You could choose to spend your car allowance on the car or choose to spend it on something else. If you've already got a car that's paid for and you're perfectly happy with it and it's reliable, spend your money on something else if you want. So that's benefit number one. Number two, I guess, is that you can decide whether you want to buy or to lease. And again, probably quite dependent on mileage. It may make a big difference as to whether you buy or lease. You've got more control with the car allowance. Right, the disadvantages of a car allowance, the main one is that any finance agreement you enter into is your responsibility. Right, so if you are 6 months into the job and you leave to get another job, or you get sacked, or you get made redundant, the fact you've got a finance agreement in place for a car to do that other job is your problem, not theirs. All right, where with a company car, if any of those things happen, well, it's their car, so it's not your concern. So think about that, and also think about if you've got finance on a car purely for work, is that going to affect your ability to borrow as much as you want on a mortgage or on a personal finance for something else? Because it is a personal debt that you've got. It's nothing to do with the company. All right, so think about that. That's quite a big one, or potentially quite a big one. Obviously, the amount of allowance you get can vary massively between company to company, and even your position within the company, and also your tax code. So think about that. If you're on 40% tax, a lot of your car allowance gets taken away before it gets to you. And also the amount you bring in on a car allowance could push you into that 40% if you're, say, currently in 20, depending on how much you currently earn. I've done a video on tax codes as well, which you might find useful. It's one of my really early videos, and I'll, if I remember, put a link to it here in the description, but you might find that a useful one as well. Obviously, the running costs are your responsibility. We've already discussed that, but something goes wrong with the car and say it suddenly needs a new gearbox or something, that's up to you. Nothing to do with the company. They're not going to reimburse you for that. If you do huge numbers of miles, it can also be very expensive to have a company car allowance versus a company car. So say you do 30,000 miles a year, the way it's generally done is you'll receive a certain amount of money per mile for the first 10,000 miles, and then a much lower amount for everything over 10,000 miles. The lower amount should just about cover your costs, but on that first amount you're doing quite well from it. So if you do 12,000 miles a year for business, then car allowance makes a lot more sense than if you're doing 30,000 miles a year for business. Okay, so should you choose a company car or a company car allowance? So what I would say is, if you're in a poor financial position yourself, or you've got poor credit history, maybe you're the sole breadwinner in the house and you need to ensure that you can get decent mortgage offers when your mortgage deal comes up for renewal. Maybe you've got other finance in place. I would say take a company car. Also, if you do loads and loads of miles, if you're doing 30,000 business miles every year, to me it makes sense to have a company car. Just because, all right, you're going to get clobbered by the tax man potentially, although not if it's an EV. But although you might get clobbered by the tax man, you know exactly how much is going out, and it's not your personal liability. It's not something that's declared when at the time of going for a mortgage or something, you know, as an outgoing that you have. So it makes much more sense to me, if you're either in a poor financial position or a bit tight money wise, or you're doing loads and loads of business miles, to have a company car. Also, for those people that have the option of taking an EV, if you can live with the charging requirements on a day-to-day basis, then it makes 100% sense to take a company car, because it's almost cost neutral to you. It's going to cost you a couple £100 a year. I mean, what else gives you that? Nothing. I guess the real benefits for a car allowance, in my personal opinion, now your use case might be completely different, I always feel like if you're someone that doesn't need a company car, you know, you do very short trips to work and you once in a blue moon go and do a long distance journey for work, to me it makes sense to take the car allowance, because all it is extra income for you. And if you do go and do a work trip, you know, 45p a mile, thank you very much, put that in your pocket, yeah, fantastic. And it's really just see it as a pay rise when you can do what you want with it. If it's more than a perk and the car is almost a tool of your trade, like a carpenter's chisel is, you know, something you're using every day for work, then you really should be thinking about the company car. And as I say, if an EV's on offer, whatever the situation, just have it. Please do me a favour, give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and push that bell icon as well. A lot of people that subscribe to my channel are not seeing the new videos because they haven't got the notifications turned on, so just click that bell icon and you'll get those. And as always, drop down into the description and there's some links in there that can help you to support the channel. So please go onto those and consider helping us out. It can be something as simple as buying me a coffee, which you can do online, or you can go on and click through our link to do your shopping with Amazon, and Amazon will know that you came from here and throw a couple of pence my way. But it all helps. You know, these are tiny amounts of money, but it all helps an unmonetized channel. So thanks very much, guys. Take care. See you next time.